was worried about not having socialization. Without line camera, yes. Yeah, it has a widescreen view at the top, and it's supposed to follow whoever's actively speaking the plot. And if it detects multiples, it will actually split the screen like it did just there. So
I found the part. How are you doing, sir?
The last one didn't go so well.
It's all right. I was watching your video.
Yeah, because like half the time they didn't even have the slides. So.
Yeah, it's good. We're getting through. That's all that.
Yeah, I need to be able to duplicate the screen instead of extend it.
Okay.
So, but it's just a newer.
Go for display settings. There in the middle. Display slideshow. Great out. You may have to go actually set the actual display settings.
Yeah, there we go. I got it. Yeah. So basically, when you need to do your demo, press the Windows key, and then go down to hover over Windows and click on this window. And then when you do that, it's actually function. Yeah.
I think Johnny got it.
Okay.
All right. Make sure you share screen. Yeah. We're just going to practice right now.
Well, I know. I should have just sent a text.
Yeah, and I'm going to press the Windows key and you switch. And then you go to the hover over there. Function after that. All right. Who's going to be presenting? Yes, sir. All right.
Technology. I'm all about technology. Huh? Okay, we'll try this. Yes, welcome everybody to this session of the kind of the planning track for the partnering conference. Introduce a few people. Hopefully you're in the right room. It's the Kentucky Statewide Corridor Plan. Should be pretty interesting. I have several presenters here. The three that I believe are going to be talking, no specific order. We'll start with Mr. Stephen DeWitt. His bio is highly.
My bio.
Just having fun. Steve leads the strategic corridor team for the KYTC Division of Planning. He helps oversee the activities roughly in half the state. He's got the best districts. That's an opinion, I guess.
Three, right?
Three, yeah, three's the best. He serves on a variety of internal research projects and implementation committees, including the prioritization, the data-driven safety analysis, the TSMO implementation, and effective scoping. Steve's a 2013 graduate of Purdue University and initially worked in Kentucky as a consultant. He's been with the cabinet now since 2018. Next will be Mr. Johnny Hahn. Johnny is the technical vice president with the Cordino Group. He has 18 years of experience in multimodal transportation planning, travel demand modeling, and transportation engineering. Dr. Hahn has managed a wide variety of transportation planning projects in the Midwest and East Coast of the United States, including some high-profile projects for KYTC, this being one of them. He earned his PhD degrees in civil engineering and statistics. I didn't know that. I didn't know that was a double. That's nice. Forgive me here. Let me admire him for a moment. From North Carolina State University, he's a registered professional engineer. Last and certainly not least is Mr. Ken Kaltenbach. Is that right?
Close enough.
Okay, close enough. He's the senior vice president with the Cordino Group in Louisville. He has 49 years of transportation planning and travel demand modeling experience. He's a registered professional engineer in 9 different states and holds a BS and MS in civil engineering from the University of Kentucky. Without further ado, I don't know who's going to start this party off. Steve?
Y'all hear me okay? I assume so. Thank you all for coming to hear about our very, very nearly completed statewide corridor plan. It's a very exciting project that's had just a lot of work behind it, and I think giving us a really good roadmap for the future, a really good vision for the state's really most important corridors. You'll see it branded occasionally as linking Kentucky. That's kind of our brand and logo. That's really what the corridor plan is all about, is linking the various parts of the various regions of the state together. This morning, we're going to be covering a few topics that you can see up here on the screen, going through just what the project is, what we're doing, how we engaged our stakeholders, the network that we studied, our 2 tiers of analysis, the corridor visioning process, and the Gis Online Tool that's kind of the linchpin holding everything together and how it's going to be disseminated and accessed in the future. The project team for the statewide corridor plan was quite big. It was, we filled up, back when we could meet in person, we filled up one of the big conference rooms downstairs in the basement of the office building. We had membership from KYTC central office, lots of different divisions, obviously planning, environmental, highway design, She's office, quite a lot of folks. We had representation from our metropolitan planning organizations, as well as the area development district planners, as well as the consultant team, which was made up of Cordino and WSP and C2 Strategic as the primary subs. And we did what a project team does, which is provide guidance and resources. We helped coordinate everything, and we made some decisions. So what we were trying to do with this massive corridor plan, and these kind of changed as we went along. We had to pivot a little bit, as always kind of happens with big projects and changes in who the governor is, who the secretary is, and kind of what their goals for the transportation cabinet are. But the most important thing, the thing that to take away the most out of this, was we wanted to identify our needs statewide for mobility, accessibility, and safety on our most important corridors, and which of those corridors had the greatest potential to improve those metrics. And so we wanted to prioritize them. We wanted to improve safety, reduce travel time, improve reliability, economic development, things that correlate well with SHIFT, which I'll talk about here in a second. We also wanted to have a vision for these corridors. Now, in SHIFT, one of SHIFT's shortcomings is that the last piece of the corridor doesn't usually score well, because we've usually taken care of the issues, the major issues on a different part of the corridor, perhaps in a breakout project, or in just a supplemental project. So the last piece to finish a long corridor sometimes doesn't score well. So you have this really, really nice corridor, except for like 3 miles, we just can't get into the highway plan. And that was one thing we really wanted to address with this project. We wanted to gain input from a lot of stakeholders statewide. There's a lot of people involved in transportation statewide. And so we wanted to get their input and get their feedback in a consistent manner. COVID made that a little bit more difficult, but through the help of our partners, we were pretty successful. And we wanted it to be straightforward. A massive planning study containing, 50 some odd corridors doesn't really lend itself to a very wordy report very, very well. And so we wanted to be able to share the results of this project in a way that made sense and didn't make people immediately fall asleep, like y'all in the back. So this is a little diagram I made. I guess it might be a little hard to see, but how we, basically what the methodology to get this behemoth under control. We started with our goals process and how we were going to go about things. We moved on just to identify the study network. And so what that means is, and Johnny and Ken will talk about this later on, we've got a lot of important roads in the state. And so, but which ones are kind of the most important, which ones are the most critical, which ones really get you from point A to point B. And so we needed to identify those and then segment those to a way that made sense. We screened those corridors, those very long corridors initially on safety, mobility, and accessibility. And then we did some, what I'll say, pruning to that list and segmented the top 25 of those to move on. We made them into shorter analysis segments so that we weren't just analyzing from Paducah to Louisville on US 60, for instance. And then we went through an additional screen where we looked at a more in-depth safety analysis, additional mobility. We brought in pavement and bridge condition, economic development, and benefit costs into the equation. And then we went through a visioning process where we kind of, what should this corridor look like in the future? That's where we got a lot of making sure it aligned with what the district wanted to do and making sure that everything was kind of on the table. Which of these corridors might be good ITS corridors in the future as we start to deploy more and more of those types of technologies. And then, how to tie it all together. And really the core of that is the Gis Online Tool, which we'll demo here in a little bit. We wanted this project to be consistent with SHIFT and the successes of SHIFT and be able to build on them. So it uses a lot of the same analysis metrics, the ones that are kind of most important for the state. So, tier 1, we looked at safety, we looked at congestion, but in that tier 2 screen, which we'll talk about later, really got into all of the SHIFT components. And so we wanted things, the corridors to score well in the corridor plan, so they would also score well in SHIFT when those projects went into SHIFT. The last thing I'm going to talk about is the stakeholder engagement, what our communication plan looked like. Again, we pivoted this a little bit to, when we have a lot of these big high profile plans, we didn't want to inundate the public with opportunities for feedback and have to keep going back and back for a variety of different things. So we made a decision that the corridor plan was going to be much more stakeholder focused and getting local official input and our planning partners throughout the state, and let other high priority plans like the long range plan, which is spinning up now, to get that wider vision public feedback from the public at large. And so we kind of had 3 tiers of communication that we kept going back and forth to, and a lot of you in the audience got to get these emails from me. The project team, which I mentioned before, was pretty well engaged throughout the process. We engaged what we termed the planning partners, which were the MPO and ad planners, as well as the chief district engineers, the branch managers for project development in the districts, and all the district planners. And then our key stakeholder group, the state legislature, every county judge, every mayor, every city manager, every sheriff, every police chief, every EMS chief, and what was that list? 1,800 people or so. And so that was a more a wider swath, but we were able to tailor our feedback, tailor our questions that we were asking them to be able to get them to maximize our input received. I think with that, turn it over to Ken to talk about that study network. So thank you all.
So when we start with the entire state of Kentucky, we've got a lot of roadways, and the idea is how to get down to the ones that you really need to study. And so that's what this first section was about. So we talked to our stakeholders, and the staff got together with the consultants, and we came up with a network of 52 corridors. And they're generally roadways that were arterials and above. And these 52 roadway segments that you see on this map, you'll see a better map later, were where we started after we narrowed down from the thousands of miles of roadway in the state. And those networks then were candidates for the Tier 1 analysis, Tier 2 analysis, and visioning. We also identified a number of corridors that we call flag corridors. And these were corridors where really the decisions have been made, or there was a detailed study underway or had been completed. It really didn't make any sense for us to redo those corridors. So we identified those, we wrote up what we knew about them, and then we moved on. We didn't try to study them any further because we just couldn't do a better job with that in this kind of study. And then we identified 5 gap corridors, and they were just, and you see those with the heavy yellow line. And those are corridors where it just looks like it might make sense to do a logical connection. So we did a sketch level analysis of it. We actually made some estimates of what the traffic might be if those roadways were built, and then we documented that. Didn't really go any further with the gap corridors. So after all of that, you see the 52 corridors that were the starting point for the study. So we really needed to narrow these down to 26 corridors. And so we came up with a rating system to do that. And so this whole process was data-driven, so that we had good reasons for what we did, and we could write that down and explain it. So we looked at 3 areas: mobility, accessibility, safety. And then we needed to weight those to describe what was most important. And we did that by reaching out to 1,500 stakeholders. And we've got really good response from that online survey. And we were able to come up with a weighting for each one of those. And we assigned them points so that they all added up to 100. And you see that on the top boxes on the right, maximum possible weighted scores. And so the mobility and accessibility were equal, and safety was 40%. So that's how we did it. So what was the mobility index made of? Well, it was made of analyzing VHT delay in this year, VHT delay, vehicle hours of traffic delay in the estimated 2045 year. And we used the statewide model to do that. So that provided a great tool and a great framework for making this analysis. And then we also looked at the areas that had direct connections to mobile hubs, and you got a boost for that. So that's how we came up with a mobility score. We also looked at the accessibility index, and so we looked at what the market was served by each corridor and how that corridor was used. And those values then added together made an accessibility index. And then with safety, we looked at the cabinet's safety databases, and we were able to look at the percentage of the vehicle miles of travel on each roadway segment that had safety issues based on the critical rate factor and excess expected crashes. So putting all of that together, we were able to assign scores for each one of these 52 corridors. And then with that, we were able to identify the top tier 1 corridors. And you can see those on the sheet. And so they're the ones with the top scores. So we've got corridors that run from, some of them are fairly short, some of them are long. And another important thing that we did here is we moved the interstates and parkways out of this list. And we're going to study those now in a separate study that we're doing now. We moved them out of this plan so that we could focus on arterial corridors and give some attention to smaller roadways throughout the state. So with that, we had the 26 corridors. So now we'll move on and let Johnny explain how we pulled projects from these 26 corridors, how we divided them up, scored them, and analyzed them further.
Thank you, Ken. So the tier 2 analysis started with the top 26 long, very long corridors survived from tier 1. And then we kind of divide those long corridors to 45 relatively shorter segments so that we can do a more detailed analysis in tier 2. So based on what Ken described in tier 1, in tier 1 we want to identify the top corridors that have the greatest needs for improvement. However, in tier 2, we want to evaluate the anticipated benefits from the proposed improvement concepts. And the first major step we did in tier 2 is we did a planning level corridor scoping. Basically, we kind of assess the existing and the future conditions for each of the 45 corridor segments. And the major goal of this corridor scoping effort is trying to, do some preliminary review of the corridor conditions and then develop some practical improvement concepts. So as part of the scoping, we kind of developed the improvement strategies for all the deficient locations with either traffic or safety issues. And then we code all these improvement strategies to our model for our analysis. And in the meanwhile, our team coordinated with the central office, KYTC central office, and each highway district to make sure that these improvement concepts are consistent with the projects currently planned by the cabinet. We also did some planning level cost estimation for each improvement concept. This slide, kind of summarize, hey, what we used for the tier 2 evaluation. Apparently, tier 2 continues using the factors of mobility, accessibility, and safety, similar as tier 1. But apparently, tier 2 used more detailed, more complex factors. Also, tier 2 focuses on, some benefits caused by the improvement concept. I mean, for example, under the mobility, we evaluated, hey, how many vehicle delay reductions by the improvements. Under the accessibility, we evaluated, how about, hey, the travel time savings along a corridor if we, propose some improvement. And also, we, incorporate a reliability bonus under the mobility using some real-world speed data provided by KYTC. The tier 2 also incorporates, the pavement and the bridge conditions. It's, kind of evaluate the new jobs and the GRP, GSP growth due to the improvement strategies. We also incorporate a multi-infrastructure bonus, trying to evaluate the opportunities to promote alternative infrastructure solutions, such as transit, bike ped, ITS, CAV, something like that. And team has helped us a lot on the ITS and the CAV. I mean, the more opportunities for a corridor to implement these alternative solutions, a higher score the corridor receives. And similar as tier 1, we did. You probably cannot see clearly on the upper right corner. We also conducted a tier 2 online survey. We reached out to about 1,500 stakeholders and help us to finalize the weighting factors for each the tier 2 performance measure factors. The last slide basically described all the quantitative factors. Tier 2 also incorporates some qualitative performance indicators. 3 of them, they are the project delivery timeline, the economic feasibility in terms of the benefit cost ratio, and the total cost in 2020 dollars. The table on the right side of the slides is showing kind of like the unit cost that we developed per mile, per location for each, the improvement categories. And all the real cost data was collected from Kentucky District, I believe it's like District 6, 8, and 10. Yes. And as Kentucky has kind of some different carrying type or in some basic unit cost in terms of the area. So basically we use the data, the cost data from District 6, 8, and 10 to kind of develop. Well, we have 3 unit sets of the cost, so we can apply the appropriate unit cost to our corridor improvements in terms of the location of the project. We also incorporate some comments from project team and planning partners in our corridor selection process. And at the last, we came up with a composite scores, which include the tier 2 quantitative score, the survey votes, the project delivery time, BC ratio, and the cost. So each of the 45 corridor segments has a composite scores, and based on that score and more discussion with KYTC, we select 20 priority corridor segments towards the corridor vision. On this map, the red and the gold corridors are the 20 priority segments. The red shows 13 of the top 20 that would benefit from visioning. The gold corridors, 7 of them, they are not among the top 20. However, they still have a relatively high scores that would benefit from the visioning. And the seven blue corridors, they are among the top 20. But after discussion with KYTC, we feel that it seems like KYTC already have some pretty solid plans or visions for those 7 blue corridors. So KYTC decided, hey, okay, we do not, include, them for vision, just to avoid, some redundant or conflict with ongoing or previous work. For those top 20, well, I'd say for the 20 priority segments, we developed the visions for each of them. Basically, the corridor visions built upon the tier 2 analysis with some more detailed analysis. The visions basically identifies the corridor issues and the needs with a focus on the future. And then based on, on that, the visions developed multiple visions that could be possible to address the corridor issues or meet the corridor needs in the future. In this process, a non-project specific strategy was used. That means if a corridor happen to have multiple improvement strategies, we are not going to prioritize them. We just include all of them in the vision. This approach would allow some flexibility to KYTC, over time, to meet some future changes in terms of the transportation demand or even some technology changes. We also incorporate a stakeholder online survey by using the Vero Voice survey tool. I'm going to talk a little bit more in the next slide. All the corridor vision data is visualized in a Gis Online Tool. So for the visioning survey, we used a tool called the Vero Voice, developed by Colton. It's kind of a innovative crowdsourcing tool. Vero Voice can collect the location-specific comments, and then we can easily export all the data from our website, from our survey website, convert it to some GIS files for any post processing. We have this survey in early 2021 for about 2 months. We reached out to about 1,400 stakeholders. We received more than 200 high quality location specific comments, and the map shows where those comments are located. All these comments covers all the 12 highway districts and the 11 comment categories established by our team. We plan to do a demo of this GIS Online Tool because this is one of the major products for this project. But before I go to the demo, I want to talk a little bit about the structure. This GIS Online Tool has a 2-level structure. The vision database is basically an Excel file running behind the scene. All the visioning data is stored in that Excel file. So users can easily go back and go to that database and change whatever data they want. Then there is a GIS website on the front end. This website will read the data from the Excel database real time. So that means whenever we make a change to the Excel file, it will be immediately reflected in the GIS Online Tool. And this GIS Online Tool have an interactive map to visualize the corridors and all the data. It also have some multi-tab interface for detailed visionings. This tool can be accessed from anywhere, anytime, by cell phones, your computers, your iPad, as long as you have internet and Wi-Fi. and it's also easy and open for continuous maintenance and update in the future. I think that is a presentation part. Next, I'm going to quickly show the Gis Online Tool. I still got some minutes left. I'll quickly run through this, then we will reserve some time for QAs. So, well, this is still a demo version, and currently we are working with KYTC together to transfer this Gis Online Tool to KYTC server. Before we complete that transfer, this Gis Online Tool will be running from our consulting team server. But this demo version already includes all the vision data that we produced. So on the left side, there is a panel. It's a kind of give us some brief introduction about this project, our goals, methodology, something like that. Then on the right side, you can see, and well, there are lots of maps and the layer and data layers. Currently, we show the tier 2, the 20 visioning corridors, which are highlighted in dark green. We also show all other tier 2 corridors in light green. And we can, you can turn on, turn off whatever layers you want. Then we have some county MPO boundaries, something like that. Under the existing roadway facilities, we include the number of lanes, shoulder, median, posting the speed. Just quickly turn on the number of lanes so we can see how it looks like. I can just and under the issues and concerns, we have lots of data here. We highlighted the potential bottlenecks, also the safety, pavement, bridge conditions, and just the safety. And the safety layer shows KAB level of service of the safety, values 1 through 4. Apparently, 4 means there has the most safety concerns. If you hover your mouse here, it will tell you it will, when you hover your mouse on the map, it will tell you, hey, what is the KEC, LOSS values for that location, and also, the values for the CO branches.
This thing looks better on the computer screen than it does on this.
If we click on, I think we're running out of time. If we click on one of the corridors,
yeah,
like that big page.
Sure. For example, I just click corridor 6B. The visioning will be organized by topics. This topic just shows some basic information. It also shows like the overall tier 2 scores. It's kind of a sum of mobility, reliability, accessibility, and all other factors. And you can just turn on, turn off, this, to just focus on whatever factors you have interest to see. Then the traffic growth, we did some corridor level evaluation of the traffic and the growth for general ADT and the freight trucks, and the land use as well. We kind of provide some low, medium, high gauge for each of the corridors. Under the issues concerns, we identify the major bottlenecks, and for each of the bottleneck, we use the model data to kind of give a big picture of, hey, the level of congestion for 2015 base year, 2035 interim year, and 2045 future. We have the safety and infrastructure. And then we also did some planning level environmental red flag analysis. We have a summary here. We also have the map showing all the key red flag items. Then under the other modes, we look at the transit bike path. We evaluated the connectivity, of this corridor with existing, facilities. Same thing for the bike path improvement concept, bridge, pavement improvement. Then stakeholders, this is from the Vero Voice. We have a map showing the comment locations. Then on the left side, we provided the original comments. Then the last tab is a scoping report that we developed as part of Tier 2. So it's kind of very similar as code visions. I think that's pretty much about it. Any questions?
What did you come up with the scoring matrix for each category?
What do we come up with a matrix based on?
You had a statistics score for each category, right?
Yes.
How did you guys rate?
How do we weight them?
How did you determine which the highest score and lowest?
Oh, okay. Well, basically, we, using that performance measure matrix, for each performance measures, we derive the scores for each of the corridors. Then we did a percentile analysis for all the 45. Then we use the 25 percentile, then 75 percentile to kind of give some ranges, like low, medium, high, something.
And then make safety worth so much because that's what the stakeholders, thought. It was a relative weighting with what the stakeholders thought for the big categories.
So was it based on something to show?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we're a little out of time. They actually cut this session and the next one by 10 minutes, only 40 minutes long. So we're overdue. So any other questions? Johnny, Ken, Steve would be more than happy to answer any questions that you have after this is we end this. So thank you. Let's give them a hand. We'll take just a